how did you, after you forego that career in comedy, how'd you get involved in the music business?
Well, no, the comedy thing came later, Steve. Originally, I wanted to be a rock star, you know?
Oh, okay.
And I was stoned enough to think that I could actually make it. I wasn't talented enough, but I sounded good to me because I was high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you can, you know, work all that out, trust me, it was an incredible career path I was on. Then, you know, I'm old enough that it was around that time that the first Van Halen record came out, and I heard that and I said, well, you know, I might as well fucking try to dunk a basketball because, and there's not too many people that can do that.
You were a Van Halen fan, huh?
Of course, but yeah, once I heard him playing the guitar, I said, okay, I don't really need to be practicing anymore because it's not going to make a difference. I can't do that.
No.
So, but it was around that same time that I made a deal with my dad that I had a year to become a rock star, or else I had to go to college because I had no interest in going to college. So, but I had to get a job. So luckily I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who got me an interview at Warner Communications, and I wound up with a trainee field merchandiser position. Why is the story interesting? Well, because, you know, what I learned is if you can get your foot in the door, you can make something happen. I didn't have any idea what I was getting into. It was July 31st. They gave me a staple gun, some double-sided tape, and a bunch of Led Zeppelin posters, and I ran around putting up posters in record stores, smoking weed like a chimney, and I thought, this is the greatest job in history. You know? $4 an hour, free records. I was like, this is incredible. Now, of course, that job doesn't exist anymore because there's no record stores. You can't really put up posters on iTunes.
No.
But the fact is...
But there still is pot around. Yeah,
there's still pot if you want it. And I've been working very hard to make it legal so all you kids out there can smoke it without getting your asses arrested, which is a really bad thing to do. So, and that's the true fact, as you know, from my work of the last 20 years on with the Drug Policy Alliance. But we digress.
Let's come back to yes.
So, so there I was at Atlantic Records, and I thought, wow, this is a great job, but I'd rather have a job finding artists, because that looks like the right job to me. And I wasn't super impressed with the guys that were doing it, you know? I was one guy who, I swear to God, had fucking old egg salad sandwiches in his office and like shit piled up. I was like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Yeah. And I was right. So I just thought, my thought was, if I could just be half smart, half good at this, I'd be 3/4 better than these idiots. You know, and this was Atlantic Records. This wasn't exactly, you know.
This wasn't some shitbag organization.
No,
this was home of Led Zeppelin.
So I said, okay, I got to find a way to get myself one of those jobs, you know. So here's what the interesting part of the story is, and this has elements of a little bit of skill and timing and luck, but, you know, a lot of luck and some serendipity, you know, some synchronicity and the whole shit put in. But I took a little different approach, which is that there was a magazine back then called Album Network. So it's defunct now, but there's some modern equivalent that you guys might be able to pull up. So Album Network, as you remember, was a magazine that had it was a Bible of rock radio. It was a trade magazine, Bible of rock radio. So at the back of the magazine, each week they would put a list of the 190 rock stations in the country, and each list, it had the playlist of each station along with the program director's name and number. So my strategy was, I'm going to go through this list, read every single record on every radio station and try to find one that's being played that's not already signed. The thought being maybe that would be a tip-off of something that I should be looking at and try to get these geniuses here to sign it. So then I would call the radio station because the number was there. I'd pretend I was somebody important at Atlantic Records, and then, you know, try to get the guy on the phone and see if I could find out anything about this group. So half the time they'd say, "Oh no, you ding-dong, I was already signed to RCA," or whatever the hell it was. And
who knew?
Half the time they wouldn't take me to the call. Then they called, so the maths was now down to 25% of the time. But whatever, as fate would have it, there was a radio station in Long Island, WBAB, that was playing a group called The Lines. So I called him up, and I got the program director on the phone. His name was Bob Buckman. I said, "Bob, what's this group, The Lines?" And he says, shit, that's nothing you need to be concerned with. He said, "I put it on as a favor to somebody." I said, "Well, the one smart thing I said at that point in time, I said, well, if you were me, who would you sign?" And at the time, I had trouble signing my name. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I had any ability to do anything like that, but it was a good question. And he said, "Well, let me tell you about Zebra." So I go, "What's a Zebra?" And he said, "Zebra's the #1 most requested band at this radio station." I said, "Oh, you mean the most requested local band? That's cute." And he says, "Hey, genius, let me read you something," right? And he reads me. I still remember the numbers. He says 6.8% of all the requests in the last quarter of the year came in for Zebra. Number 2 was, I don't remember, the next 3 were Ozzy, AC/DC, and Led Zeppelin. I don't remember in which order. And I said, "Fuck it, I'm rich." Right? That's it. How do I get a hold of this?
Zebra.
And he says, "Hold on, I'll call the other guys on the other phone." So he calls them. They live down in New Orleans. They'd been playing shows for 9 years and completely given up hope of getting a record deal. Selling out shows all over the place. So the next day I get to my desk, because I didn't have an office, and there was a FedEx package glowing on my desk. I'd never gotten a FedEx package, you know, before, and I was like, wow, this is pretty exciting. Like, what the fuck?
You're moving up in the business fast.
Yeah, but I don't know what to do with it because I had nowhere to listen to it. I had like an LP or something, and you know, so I went to one of the A&R guys' office and I said, "You're about to hear the next big thing." He says, "Really? Did you listen to it?" I said, "No, but I'm just telling you, this is the next big thing." Because to me, it was science, right? It's #1 most requested. What difference does it make what I think of it?
Yeah.
So he puts it on. He says, "Nah, this sounds too much like this." He sings like that. It's no good, and all kinds of no good. 10 different ways he told me how no good it was, and I'm just devastated. So I go back to my desk. I'm dialing the singer. His name was Randy Jackson, not that Randy Jackson. Randy, and I said, as I'm halfway through dialing his number, I said to the secretary sitting in front of me, her name was Mary. I go, "Mary, how the fuck does this make any sense? This guy's selling out every club. He's #1. I mean, the band's selling every club. They're #1 on the station, #1 most requested. And I'm calling to tell him his stuff is no good." And she goes, "Doesn't make any sense to me either." So I said, "Well, fuck it." So I call him up and I said, "You know, this guy said no good, blah, blah, blah." I said, "But I'm going to give it to Doug Morris, the president of Atlantic, and see what he thinks." You know, so now, you know, Doug didn't know me other than as the guy who had way too much hair and always smelled like pot. But other than that, and carried around a bunch of stuff and was bumping into shit. So, but I figured, what the hell, I'll put it on his desk and see what happens.
Yeah.
And
you were still the field merchandiser at this point.
I was definitely the field merchant. I was making, like I said, $4 an hour. I was 18 or 19 years old. And I put the damn thing on his secretary's desk. I made a cassette out of it, and she had a pile of cassettes that he was never going to listen to. And as fate would have it, and this is where the serendipity comes in, right? As fate would have it, he happened sometime the next couple of days to pull a few of those cassettes off her desk, and he's in his car driving home and listening to them, and he was listening to Zebra, and I don't think he loved it, let's just say that, right? So he popped it out of the tape deck, and the fucking thing was playing on the radio. Because the station was tuned to WBAB, and he happened to live in Long Island. Well, still does, you know. So he can, and then at the end of the song, the DJ says that's the most requested song in the history of WBAB. Zebra, who's behind the door. So he comes in the next day and goes, "This is genius!" Wow. And I was like, "Of course it is. Wow. I knew that."
Did he ask me who brought this in? He goes, "Give me that kid."
Well, at that point they used to let me sit in on the A&R meetings because they would need somebody to call around to find. If somebody found an act that they liked, they'd make me call around and see if anything was going on, or call some stores and see if anybody cared, whatever, or try to track them. So I was like the research kid by then, you know.
Sure.
So, but at this point, everybody in the A&R meeting is like, "What, genius? What? And I'm like, "How you doing? Hey, how about that?" And then the great news was, because the band had such a big following, the record came out and exploded.
Now, were they still called Zebra when they came out? Okay.
Yeah, the song was "Who's Behind the Door," and the you know, there was no way to get it back then. There was no internet, right? So, I mean, we're talking, this is like 1943 or whatever the fuck it was, right? So I mean, they were still working on electricity back then. So they so the kids all cut school on the Monday it came out and would just mob the stores. It was like a Guns N' Roses Midnight Madness sale or something like that. And
except the band showed up probably.
And then they didn't have to show up. Everyone's just, you know, it's crazy. So all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Wow, this kid knows what he's doing." I was like, "Sure I do." And they gave me a little office, you know what I mean? And then the next thing was Twisted Sister, and I was off to the races.
Oh, God, Twisted Sister.